Genesis chapter 12. Abram's call and migration. The Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from your land, your relatives, and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who curse you. All the families of the earth will find blessing in you." Abram went as the Lord directed him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. Abram took his wife Sarai, his brother's son Lot, all the possessions that they had accumulated, and the persons they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land as far as the sacred place at Shechem by the oak of Moreh. The Canaanites were then in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your descendants I will give this land." So Abram built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved on to the hill country east of Bethel, pitching his tent with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. He built an altar there to the Lord and invoked the Lord by name. Then Abram journeyed on by stages to the Negeb. Abram and Sarai in Egypt. There was famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, since the famine in the land was severe. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to his wife Sarai, "I know that you are a beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'She is his wife,' then they will kill me, but let you live. Please say therefore that you are my sister, so that I may fare well on your account, and my life may be spared for your sake." When Abram arrived in Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was very beautiful. When Pharaoh's officials saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Abram fared well on her account, and he acquired sheep, oxen, male and female servants, male and female donkeys, and camels. But the Lord struck Pharaoh and his household with severe plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Then Pharaoh summoned Abram and said to him, "How could you do this to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now here is your wife, take her and leave." Then Pharaoh gave his men orders concerning Abram, and they sent him away with his wife and all that belonged to him. Genesis chapter 13. Abram and Lot part. From Egypt, Abram went up to the Negeb with his wife and all that belonged to him, and Lot went with him. Now Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. From the Negeb he traveled by stages toward Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had formerly stood, the site where he had first built the altar, and there Abram invoked the Lord by name. Lot, who went with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, so that the land could not support them if they stayed together. Their possessions were so great that they could not live together. There were quarrels between the herders of Abraham's livestock and the herders of Lot's livestock. At this time the Canaanites and the Perizzites were living in the land. So Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no strife between you and me, or between your herders and my herders, for we are kindred. Is not the whole land available? Please separate from me. If you prefer the left, I will go to the right. If you prefer the right, I will go to the left." Lot looked about and saw how abundantly watered the whole Jordan plain was, as far as Zoar, like the Lord's own garden, or like Egypt. This was before the Lord had destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot therefore chose for himself the whole Jordan plain, and set out eastward. Thus they separated from each other. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled among the cities of the plain, pitching his tents near Sodom. Now the inhabitants of Sodom were wicked, great sinners against the Lord. After Lot had parted from him, the Lord said to Abram, "Look about you, and from where you are, gaze to the north and south, east and west. All the land that you see I will give to you and your descendants forever. I will make your descendants like the dust of the earth. If anyone could count the dust of the earth, your descendants too might be counted. Get up and walk through the land across its length and breadth, for I give it to you." Abram moved his tents and went on to settle near the oak of Mamre, which is at Hebron. There he built an altar to the Lord. Genesis chapter 14. the four kings. When Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, made war on Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemember, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, all the latter kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. For 12 years they had served Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year Chedorlaomer and the kings allied with him came and defeated the Rephaim and Ashtaroth, Karnaim, the Zuzim and Ham, the Emim and Shaba, Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir as far as El Paran, close by the wilderness. They then turned back and came to En-Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and they subdued the whole country of both the Amalekites and the Amorites who lived in Hazazon Tamar. Thereupon the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar, marched out, and in the valley of Siddim they went into battle against them, against Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goim, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of bitumen pits, and as the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah fled, they fell into these, while the rest fled into the mountains. The victors seized all the possessions and food supplies of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they went their way. They took with them Abram's nephew Lot, who had been living in Sodom, as well as his possessions, and departed. A survivor came and brought the news to Abram the Hebrew, who was camping at the oak of Mamre the Amorite, a kinsman of Eshcol, and Aner. These were allies of Abram. When Abram heard that his kinsman had been captured, he mustered 318 of his retainers, born in his house, and went in pursuit as far as Dan. He and his servants deployed against them at night, defeated them, and pursued them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. He recovered all the possessions. He also recovered his kinsman Lot and his possessions, along with the woman and the other people. When Abram returned from his defeat of Chedorlaomer and the kings who were allied with him, the king of Sodom went out to greet him in the valley of Shaba, that is, King's Valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest of God Most High. He blessed Abram with these words, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who delivered your foes into your hand. Then Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the captives, the goods you may keep. But Abram replied to the king of Sodom, I have sworn to the Lord, God Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, that I would not take so much as a thread or a sandal strap from anything that is yours, so that you cannot say I made Abram rich. Nothing for me except what my servants have consumed, and the share that is due to the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take their share. Genesis chapter 15. The covenant with Abraham. Sometime afterward, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not fear, Abram. I am your shield. I will make your reward very great. But Abram said, Lord God, what can you give me if I die childless and have only a servant of my household, Eliezer of Damascus? Abram continued, Look, you have given me no offspring, so a servant of my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him, No, that one will be your heir, your own offspring will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. Just so, he added, will your descendants be. Abram put his faith in the Lord, who attributed it to him as an act of righteousness. He then said to him, I am the Lord who brought you from Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land as a possession. Lord God, he asked, how will I know that I will possess it? He answered him, Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. He brought him all these, split them in two, and placed each half opposite the other, but the birds he did not cut up. Birds of prey swooped down on the carcasses, but Abram scared them away. As the sun was about to set, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and a great dark dread descended upon him. Then the Lord said to Abram, Know for certain that your descendants will reside as aliens in a land not their own, where they shall be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation they must serve, and after this they will go out with great wealth. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace. You will be buried at a ripe old age. In the fourth generation your descendants will return here, for the wickedness of the Amorites is not yet complete. When the sun had set and it was dark, there appeared a smoking firepot and a flaming torch which passed between those pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants I give this land from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Kadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Genesis chapter 16, birth of Ishmael. Abram's wife Sarai had borne him no children. Now she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. Sarai said to Abram, the Lord has kept me from bearing children. Have intercourse with my maid. Perhaps I will have sons through her. Abram obeyed Sarai. Thus, after Abram had lived 10 years in the land of Canaan, his wife Sarai took her maid, Hagar the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. He had intercourse with her, and she became pregnant. As soon as Hagar knew she was pregnant, her mistress lost stature in her eyes. So Sarai said to Abram, this outrage against me is your fault. I myself gave my maid to your embrace, but ever since she knew she was pregnant, I have lost stature in her eyes. May the Lord decide between you and me. Abram told Sarai, your maid is in your power. Do to her what you regard as right. Sarai then mistreated her so much that Hagar ran away from her. The Lord's angel found her by a spring in the wilderness, the spring on the road to Shur. And he asked Hagar, maid of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going? She answered, I am running away from my mistress Sarai. But the Lord's angel told her, go back to your mistress and submit to her authority. I will make your descendants so numerous, added the Lord's angel, that they will be too many to count. Then the Lord's angel said to her, you are now pregnant and shall bear a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has indeed your affliction. He shall be a wild ass of a man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. Alongside all his kindred shall he encamp. To the Lord who spoke to her she gave a name, saying, you are God who sees me. She meant, have I really seen God and remained alive after he saw me? That is why the well is called Bir Lahai Roi. It is between Kadesh and Bered. Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named the son whom Hagar bore him Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. Genesis chapter 17, covenant of circumcision. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I am God the Almighty. Walk in my presence and be blameless. Between you and me I will establish my covenant, and I will multiply you exceedingly. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, for my part, here is my covenant with you. You are to become the father of a multitude of nations. No longer will you be called Abram, your name will be Abraham. For I am making you the father of a multitude of nations. I will make you exceedingly fertile. I will make nations of you. Kings will stem from you. I will maintain my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout the ages, an everlasting covenant, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. I will give to you and to your descendants after you the land in which you are now residing as aliens, the whole land of Canaan as a permanent possession, and I will be their God. God said to Abraham, for your part, you and your descendants after you must keep my covenant throughout the ages. This is the covenant between me and you and your descendants after you that you must keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. Circumcise the flesh of your foreskin. That will be the sign of the covenant between me and you. Throughout the ages, every male among you, when he is 8 days old, shall be circumcised, including houseborn slaves and those acquired with money from any foreigner who is not of your descendants. Yes, both the houseborn slaves and those acquired with money must be circumcised. Thus my covenant will be in your flesh as an everlasting covenant. If a male is uncircumcised, that is, if the flesh of his foreskin has not been cut away, such a one will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. God further said to Abraham, as for Sarai your wife, do not call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her, and I will give you a son by her. Her also will I bless. She will give rise to nations, and rulers of peoples will issue from her. Abraham fell face down and laughed as he said to himself, Can a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Can Sarah give birth at 90? So Abraham said to God, If only Ishmael could live in your favor. God replied, Even so, your wife Sarah is to bear you a son, and you shall call him Isaac. It is with him that I will maintain my covenant as an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. Now as for Ishmael, I will heed you, I hereby bless him, I will make him fertile, and will multiply him exceedingly. He will become the father of 12 chieftains, and I will make of him a great nation. But my covenant I will maintain with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you by this time next year. When he had finished speaking with Abraham, God departed from him. Then Abraham took his son Ishmael and all his slaves, whether born in his house or acquired with his money, every male among the members of Abraham's household. And he circumcised the flesh of their foreskins on that same day, as God had told him to do. Abraham was 99 years old when the flesh of his foreskin was circumcised, and his son Ishmael was 13 years old when the flesh of his foreskin was circumcised. Thus on that same day Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised. And all the males of his household, including the slaves born in his house or acquired with his money from foreigners, were circumcised with him. Genesis chapter 18. Abraham's visitors. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the oak of Mamre as he sat in the entrance of his tent while the day was growing hot. Looking up, he saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the entrance of the tent to greet them, and bowing to the ground, he said, Sir, if it please you, do not go past your servant. Let some water be brought, that you may bathe your feet, and then rest under the tree. Now that you have come to your servant, let me bring you a little food, that you may refresh yourselves, and afterward you may go on your way. Very well, they replied, do as you have said. Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, Quick, 3 measures of bran flour, knead it, and make bread. He ran to the herd, picked out a tender choice calf, and gave it to a servant who quickly prepared it. Then he got some curds and milk as well as the calf that had been prepared, and set these before them, waiting on them under the tree while they ate. Where's your wife Sarah? They asked him. There in the tent, he replied. One of them, he said, I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah will then have a son. Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent just behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years, and Sarah had stopped having her menstrual periods. So Sarah laughed to herself and said, Now that I am worn out and my husband is old, am I still to have sexual pleasure? But the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh and say, Will I really bear a child, old as I am? Is anything too marvelous for the Lord to do? At the appointed time, about this time next year, I will return to you, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah lied, saying, I did not laugh because she was afraid, but he said, Yes, you did. Abraham intercedes for Sodom. With Abraham walking with them to see them on their way, the men set out from there and looked down toward Sodom. The Lord considered, Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do, now that he is to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth are to find blessing in him? Indeed, I have singled him out that he may direct his children and his household in the future to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord may put into effect for Abraham the promises he made about him. So the Lord said, The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sins so grave, that I must go down and see whether or not their actions are as bad as the cry against them that comes to me. I mean to find out. As the men turned and walked on towards Sodom, Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham drew near and said, Will you really sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there were 50 righteous people in the city, would you really sweep away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people within it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous and the wicked are treated alike. Far be it from you. Should not the judge of all the world do what is just? The Lord replied, If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Abraham spoke up again, See how I am presuming to speak to my Lord, though I am only dust and ashes. What if there are 5 less than 50 righteous people? Will you destroy the whole city because of those 5? I will not destroy it, he answered, if I find 45 there. But Abraham persisted, saying, What if only 40 are found there? He replied, I will refrain from doing it for the sake of the 40. Then he replied, Do not let my Lord be angry if I go on. What if only 30 are found there? He replied, I will refrain from doing it if I can find 30 there. Abraham went on, Since I have thus presumed to speak to my Lord, what if there are no more than 20? I will not destroy it, he answered, for the sake of the 20. But he persisted, Please do not let my Lord be angry if I speak up this last time. What if 10 are found there? For the sake of the 10, he replied, I will not destroy it. The Lord departed as soon as he had finished speaking with Abraham, and Abraham returned home.